Hi everyone, and welcome to Board Game Meeple stream of Viticulture. This won't be a full playthrough. This is just a teach and learn. I'll go through the basics of Viticulture. This is actually the Tuscany expansion, which is the only version we now play. But I'll do a teach and learn, go through the basic mechanics, the point of the game, how you score points, and a couple of sample turns. So we've got a couple of different shots. We've got the main table looking down today, so this area here. We've also got a view of the player board, which is here. So yeah, I've only got one player board in shot. I will try and run this as two players, but I'll talk through that in a moment. And then we have also got an overlay where we will zoom in on the cards as and when we need them. So the point of Viticulture, so you are running a vineyard in Tuscany, and you start with 3 holdings on your player board. Each holds a different value, and I'll go through that in a minute, but you've got 3 fields that you can plant vines in. You also start with a small cellar, just here, that can be upgraded to a medium and large cellar, and you start with 3 workers. And I'll cover the starting setup in a moment. And the point of the game is to score the most victory points, and the victory points track is along the bottom of the board. We all start on 0. There is ways you can lose some points at the beginning of the game, and the game runs until we get to 25 points. There is no maximum. If somebody does score more than 40 over here, that doesn't matter. We can just go past that and count up. The idea of the game is to grow vines, grow grapes, crush those grapes and turn those grapes into wine, and to fulfill orders that your customers need by playing through a number of years. And the game will end, as I say, when we get to 25 victory points. This is the main board. There's 3 core zones. The left-hand side here is where we'll decide who goes first and some bonuses. We have a map of Tuscany down the bottom that's all around end game scoring, and then we've got the main main game board, which is actually broken up into 4 parts of the seasons. So we've got spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And it's a worker placement game, which means that on your player board you've got some workers, and you will allocate these workers to various parts of the game to take actions to fulfill various things. So let's just talk about the player board. So we've all got the same player board. Each player has the same layout at the start of the game. As I said, there's 3 fields that you can grow on, and the maximum amount of vines you can grow is 5, 6, and 7. I'll explain that in a moment. And across your player board are also buildings you can build. You can see here you can build a trellis for 2 coins. There's an irrigation tower for 3 coins. There's a cottage, there's a windmill, there's a tasting room, and there's a yoke that I'll explain as we go through the game. But they all give you various bonuses that you can use for your advantage. Down the bottom left, we have the crush pad. And this is where you will take any harvest you take from your fields, and you'll put them in here. And you've got white and you've got red grapes, valued 1 to 9. And then you've got your cellar. And as I said, you start with a small cellar that can hold up to a value 3 red or value 3 white. And then as you expand and grow the medium and large cellar, build the medium and large cellar, you can obviously go up to 6 red, 6 white, and then you can also create blush wine by combining a white and a red together. And then if you do the large cellar, obviously 9, 9, 9, and then you can start producing champagne, which requires a white and 2 red, and that lets you build a champagne. So obviously this stuff up here is going to score you more points. We've got a load of wooden components here. This is the Call de Grande worker. I'll explain that in a moment. And you start with 2 normal workers. And there's 3 more here we can choose from. There's also 2 special workers, which I'll explain in a moment. We have some stars that relate to the main board, and then all the buildings. So for example, if I built a trellis, I would put the trellis on there to represent I've built that. Again, if I built the irrigation, that would go over here. So you'll start to see the buildings you've built as you go through the game, and your player board will obviously build up. At the start of the game, one of the first decisions you'll have to make will be around kind of your inheritance. You'll choose your papa and you'll choose your mama. The papas generally tell you that you start with the grande, which I've already put on the table, and a choice around 3 coins on this card, or I can take this one with 2 coins. And this one either comes with an extra worker, so I'd start with 4, or I can choose 3 coins to start, or it comes with a windmill, or 4 coins. Now, windmill normally costs 5, and whenever I plant some vines in my fields, it will give me a victory point. So that's not a bad thing, because we are going to be planting fields quite early on. So I think, actually, I will choose that one. So we'll just put the windmill on here. And then we take 2 coins, which we'll just put on there. And then for the mama, again, shows you start with the 2, which I've got already. And then I get a choice of the cards. So let's talk about the cards. So on the main board, we've got 4 cards at the top of the table. We've got green cards. These represent the different vines. So we've got a vine here, once it focuses, there we go. That is a Chardonnay. It's a strength 4 wine, so a good wine to start with. But you'll notice in the top left hand corner there is 2 buildings, and this is saying that I must have built my trellis and my irrigation before I can build it. Whereas this card, and I'm rubbish at vine names, actually that's a 1. You see my chroma key not working properly. That's the 1 red. Has no requirement, so it's quite a weak wine, but I could build that straight away without having to build any of the buildings in here. And they vary. This white wine is a 2 value and requires just a trellis. But that's the cards. That's the green cards. So they are basically the vine cards. And if we go back to my choice here, this mama lets me start one of those cards at the beginning of the game, which is quite useful. The yellow cards are visitors. So these are people who come to visit, help, stay, support you on your vineyard in the summer. Example, we have the planner. The planner allows you to actually put a card into a worker into the future of the game. We've got the banker that allows me to gain 5 coins, and if I do, each opponent may lose a point to gain 3 coins as well. So the yellow cards are quite an advantage. They're very useful. Some are quite powerful. In this game, we've got both the core deck and the advanced cards in play. We've also got purple cards. Purple cards are the wine orders. So put the player board back on. So I'll show you here. So these orders are asking for various things. So this is asking a delivery to be complete of a strength 4 coming from my cellar and a strength 3, and will give me 3 victory points at the end when I complete it. This one is a red 5 and a white 3 wine, 4 victory points. This one requires a blush, and this one requires a champagne. That obviously it's in 9. That's the strongest and hardest wine to get in the game, but he's going to give me 5 victory points at the end of the game. So that's purple cards, and then the final cards are the blue cards. So they're exactly the same as the summer cards. They're visitors, people who come and help you in the later part of the season, across winter. Again, similar, helps you plant some fields. This one lets me harvest some crops later in the season. So again, you definitely want to have some blue and yellow cards most rounds. It really will give you advantage. So decision we need to make on these ones is which ones do we take? I think we will take that card, which means we'll take a green, and we'll take a yellow, and we'll take a blue. And that's that first decision made. So let's see what cards we got. So I got that simple red wine to make with a value of 1. We have the organic Vinter. Allows me to plant a green card or reduce a value of wine and take some victory points. Or we've got the planner. Place a work on an action in the future and they take that first. That's quite useful as we go into the game. So let's look at the board again. So in terms of the first decision anyone needs to make is around what time you wake up. That's at part of the left hand side. There's a time of 1 to 7 and basically it's really who's going to go first, both spring, summer, fall and winter. And we've got a cockerel to help us with that. And you can only ever choose 2 to 7. That very first number 1 is only available if you go into space 7. So I could choose to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and this person wakes up at 5. And then for the rest of this round, I will get a green card when I go to summer. I get a yellow card when I go to fall, and no bonus here. And this person would get a yellow or a blue card, and a star, which I'll explain in a moment. But that really means I'm always going to get first choice. Obviously, if I go up earlier, I get less bonus, but I'm more guaranteed the spaces. So in terms of actions, so there's 4 locations in every season, and the circles, and there's 3 of them, vary depending on whether you're playing 2, 4 or 6 players. So if you're playing 6 players, all 3 are available. I think it's if you've got 4 players, it's 2. And you'll see there's in some of the spaces a bonus. So if we go through top to bottom, if I go to this space, this location, it's called draw, and this allows me to take green cards off the board, so I can take vines. And if I go in this space, I will just pick up 1. If I get to go in this space, I get to draw 2. So again, going there first, why wouldn't you go there and pick up 2 vineyards? The next one down is give a tour. So this is people who are coming to my vineyard in spring and allows me to give them a tour. So I'll get 2 coins. If I go in the middle space, I get an extra 1, and so I get 3 coins. Everyone else here will go obviously get 2. And like all worker placements, if the spaces are filled with these kind of workers, then no other small worker can go there. This is where the grande, the large worker, comes in. He can go to any location, obviously only once on table, even if the space is full, and do the basic action. So he doesn't get any of the bonuses, but he does get to use that space. So often, you want to decide how desperate you are to get one of those spaces, and when you use it, because obviously you only get 1 chance to put them down. And obviously I've only got 3 workers in this go, and once that's gone, I have to pass out the rest of the game. So you've got to think about what you can do. So that's given a tour. Here is how you build the structures on your player board. The costs I've been through, but for example, if I want to build a trellis, I'd go here, I'd pay 2 coins, and if I went to centre, I get a coin, or it's basically a discount. I'm just going to check I took all my money, 3 and 3 coins. And then the last space is around this part of the board, which is basically putting one of 6 stars onto this area here. So if I go here, I can put 2 stars. I go here, I put 1 star. These stars is all about end game scoring. So when the game does end, whoever has the majority stars in these 6 areas of Tuscany will score 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, or 2 extra victory points. And it's definitely worth keeping an eye on, because I have lost games before when I've scored the 25 or so points and then kind of noticed that I'd lost the majority and someone sneaked past me. And the first time you place a star there, there's also an additional bonus. So if I go here, I can take a green vine card, get a coin, get an order card, get a winter card, summer card, and get 2 coins. You can also use that place to also move. So let's say I've lost the majority. I can maybe move this into here. Now I don't get the bonus for moving it. It's if you first put the star down. But that's a good way of scoring points, and also sometimes you want to get a couple of cards. So that is stars. In summer, we've got the ability to now play yellow cards. So if I go here, I can play a yellow card. I can play a second yellow card, so I can play 2. If I go here, I play 1, but I do get an extra coin. So again, if you're first in, you're going to be guaranteed it. If you're playing a 6-player game or a 5-player game, these spaces are obviously quite limited. This is how you now plant those vines. So you've always got 2 spaces. Middle space is plant 1 vine card. The second space lets you plant 2. Now, this is where the numbers come in. So it says here max vine value 5, 6, and 7. So I could plant this here, 3, and that leaves me ability to place up to 2 more values of a vineyard, of a vine. So I could place 2 1s, I could place a 2, and you can mix and match. So this field is producing a 3 strength grape and a 2 strength grape. I could put a 4 in here and a 1 in here, but I can never go above the total value of 6, 7, or 5. So again, that's a decision you need to make. There is an ability to uproot vines by going to here, but you must have built the yoke for 2 coins as you play through the game. So that's planting fields. This one is trading 1 for 1. This allows you to trade 2 cards, or spend 3 coins, or spend a victory point, or spend a wine token to exchange for something else. So I could spend 3 coins and convert that to a victory point. I could give up 2 cards of any type, because it's grey, and swap them for 2 different cards. And if I go in the middle, I can do that twice. So I could, in theory, give up 4 cards for 4 different cards, or 2 cards for 3 coins, and 2 cards for a victory point. So it's especially towards the end, sort of mid-game, you can exchange, and often, do that quite well. But I had somebody played us recently online on Tabletopia who spent half the game getting points and was in the lead quite well at one point. And then the last space is basically flipping or selling property. So you'll see at the bottom of the cards of these fields a 5, a 6, and a 7. And if I was to go in that space, I could sell that for 5 coins, flip it over, and it's sold. I can obviously buy it back, but if I'm desperate for cash, that's a way of getting money quite quickly. I don't think I've done that very often, maybe once or twice. So yeah, it's available if you need some money. And obviously if I go to this space, it gives me an extra victory point as well, so which is quite nice. Into the autumn, so we have the location is to gather wine orders, so purple cards. Middle space gives me 1, this space gives me an extra 1, so I get 2. So again, that's how I get the purple cards and see what my customers might need. The next 2 spaces are critical, so this is how you harvest. So if we've built, let's put a couple of fields into our player board. So I've got some vines here. If I go in this space, it allows me to harvest 1 field. If I go to middle space, I get a coin. If I go to the second left-hand space, I get to harvest 2 fields. So I could come to here, and this is when these little shiny tokens come in, these little glass beads. I could harvest this 3 field. I take one of these discs and I put it there to indicate that I have harvested a 3 field, and I'm going to do this 4 as well, and I put a disc on there. So I've done 2 fields. If I had something like this and I did this one instead, I'd put a 1 there and a 1 there. Now if I ever end up having glass beads on the board when I go to place it down, you always downgrade it, and obviously you can't downgrade from 1, so harvesting these 2 fields again would be pointless. I could harvest this 3 again, it becomes a 2. So really you want to harvest once around, otherwise you're weakening the wine for the second time you harvest that field, which is quite good thematically. I'll leave those on there because I need to show you the next bit. So we've got some grapes in our crush pad, and the next space on the board is how to make wine. So it says make up to 2 wine tokens. If I go to this left-hand space, I can make up to 3. And that's when you come back to the player board, and that's how you move your grapes that have been crushed and turn them into wine. So it says I can make up to 2 wine tokens. So I could just slide this 3 wine to that that's 1 wine, and that 1 to there. I can move that 3. That's 2 wine tokens. As I've only got a small cellar, even if I had this 4 white, I can't move that into here because my capacity is 3. So I have to go and upgrade at some point to a medium cellar by spending 4 coins, or with a discount 3. Once I've got a medium cellar, let's imagine that we've done those. There's a large cellar built and a medium. To create champagne or blush, you have to combine things. So to make a blush wine, it's a white and a red. So if I take that 3 off and that 1, add them together, that's 4. I made a 4 blush. And if I'm making champagne, I need to add up a white and 2 red. So we can take off this 4 and this 3 and this 1. That's made a very nice 8 champagne. But obviously I need to spend 10 coins to start with to get that large cellar built. So we'll put those back. If I leave those on there a minute, just to explain ordering. And then we'll go back to the main board. So that was harvest fields and making wine. And then we've got an additional place at the bottom of that autumn track to build another structure. So I can go and build something else on my player board, or I can give a tour and gain 2 coins. So very similar to those first 2 spaces in the spring. And then finally, we've got winter. So in winter, I have the ability to play the winter cards. So if I go to middle space, I can play 2 blue cards, winter visitor cards, or I can take a coin as a bonus and play 1 blue card. We've got the ability to train more workers. So you can pay 4 coins to take one of the meeples and put them onto your player board. You put them on here. So if I go there, they stay here until the end of the round. If I go that middle space, that left-hand space, sorry, that gives me a discount of 1. So really it's going to cost me 3. And then in Tuscany, we've got 2 additional workers, and there's 10 of these that you choose randomly from. They're these 2. And in this selection is randomly drawn. We have the merchant, which is there. So the merchant, if I were to take him, and he costs one coin more than the normal, so it will cost 5 or 4 a discount. If you place the merchant on the board after all opponents have passed to the next season, you draw a card. It's quite nice, quite useful. That means I do have to go last every season, which could be a strategy to get an extra card out. And then this one is the professor, and he says when you place the professor, you may retrieve one of your regular workers from an action space on the board in the current season. So basically, if I had a worker on the board here, if I had a worker on the board here, and then place the professor, let's say here, I get to retrieve one of my workers in this zone, which means I get to use them again. So actually, he is very useful indeed. So I'll keep an eye on that one because that's probably worth building. You can never have more than 6 workers, including the Grande, in the game. So obviously you could build 2 of the special workers, but you then can't build 2 of the normal workers. But it's a maximum of 6. So that's training. I generally, all the time, try and get as many workers out as possible. They're obviously very useful. The more workers you have, the more actions you can take. We've got 3 more spaces to go. Here's how you sell. So I can sell 1 wine token. So if I haven't got any orders to complete, that's the purple cards, then I can just come here. If I go in the middle space, I get to put a star down. But I can sell any red or white wine just for a victory point, a blush for 2, and champagne for 4. So again, towards the end of the game, you may be getting desperate for some victory points. You can't get the order you need. You can just obviously just trade in your wine for some slightly cheaper than normal victory points, but can often help you win. And the last space is the fill order wine location. So if you go here, you can complete a wine order. That's the purple cards. If I go to middle space, I get a victory point. If I go to left-hand space, I just complete them. And then basically, it's, if I've got this one here, I've got a 4. Let's imagine I've got a 5 on my player board. So I've got a 5 wine. This requires a 5 red. I take it off, I discard it, I score 2 victory points, and then I score this kind of it's an ongoing income that comes every round. So it's 1 coin, and that's tracked up here. So we should be in the middle to start with. I move it to there. At the end of every round, I will get a coin. Some of the cards come with 2, so I'll move it to here. And at the end of every round, when obviously winter's over, I will get 3 victory points. 3 coins. So it's as if people have bought your wine, taken it back to maybe their retail outlet or to their restaurant, and they're selling that wine ongoing. So you're getting a little bit of rebuy, which is quite nice. So it's some additional income that's guaranteed every round. And then there's one space bottom left. It's white, which means anyone can go here numerous times. At any point, you can go here and gain a coin. Not the greatest way of getting money, but if you've only got a couple of people left or you really are desperate, you could go here. So I think that should pretty much cover all the spaces. Obviously, you start the game with just these 3 workers. We've done our player board, so we've done our starting bit. We would then randomly choose a start player. That'll be me. Let me take these bits off and reset the board. And the first thing you have to decide is obviously when you're going to wake up. So it really depends. At this point in the game, it's probably worth grabbing maybe space 3 because it gives me a green card straight away. Now I had one. I've got a vine card. I think I'm gonna wake up at 3 o'clock, and we'll imagine that the second player is going to wake up at 4 o'clock. So we're in spring. There's no bonus right now. We're not in summer, and I get to put a worker down. So I think what I'm going to do is I've only got 2 coins. I'm actually going to do a tour and take 3 coins. The coin in this game comes in lovely metal tokens. We've got 5s, 2s, and 1s. Let me just put that on there so you can see. 5, 2s, and 1s. Metal, very nice. So I'll take 3 coins. And then yellow is going to look at their cards, and they're going to build a structure. Obviously get a discount, and they're going to spend 2 coins, and they're going to build their trellis because they've got a wine card that lets them build trellis. Next, my go. I definitely want to be building a special worker or a worker at the end of the game, so I need to keep at least one of my people back. Now I'm going to wake up first. I'm guaranteed. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass. So I will now move that cockerel across, and I take a green card as the bonus. And now it's yellow's turn. Now it's yellow's turn until the point they pass. So they could have 2 more goes, or they could choose to wait. And actually, yellow is going to choose to actually place some stars. So they're going to take 2 of their stars, and they're going to go and do some influence across Tuscany. So I think they also need a yellow card. So they're going to go here, take a yellow card off the board. That was the banker that they've taken. So allows them, so gain 5 coins if they play that card, and each opponent may lose a victory point to gain 3. So a good advantage for them, and also a chance for the other players to get some money as well. And they are also going to take, they didn't start with any green cards, they're going to go here, I won't pronounce the words, and they took a Merlot, which is value 3, you can't quite read it, but requires an irrigation at the top. So they're going to have to build an irrigation, and they built a trellis, so that was a foolish mistake to do. And now they're going to pass, so they are finished for the spring, so they move their cockerel over, and they take a purple card. And this is a wine order, so quite an easy wine order, does require 2 whites. So again, they might want to go and look at which vines they've got to plant in their fields, but it gives them a 4 and a 3 Wine, if they complete it, will give them 3 victory points and then a coin on the remedial track. So they keep that in front of them. And now we're in summer. Now it's now my go again. I can choose to pass or I can choose to play. And I think we will actually plant some fields. So I'm going to use this one here to plant 2 green fields. So 2 vines. So we're going to plant these 2. Whatever that wine is, I will not destroy those wines in terms of naming, but they don't have any requirements, so I don't need a trellis or a irrigation, and they're very basic. But it does mean that if I do some harvesting, I can get some wine production off quite quickly. And they end up just being on my player board there. In the first field, maximum is 5 it can hold, and we've now put the first 2 in, so not too much of a problem. It's now yellow's turn, and they are going to pass. So they pass first. They take a yellow card, and this time we've got this card. So each player may gain 2 grapes in the crush pad. So that's that bottom left-hand part of the player board on their crush pad. If at least one opponent does this, they get 2 victory points. So again, it's quite good for them. Very quick way of getting some some grapes produced, but obviously is also an advantage to the other players. So they've got a couple of good cards there. I will now pass, so I will also get a yellow card, and I've picked up. That's quite good. It's called the Producer, and pay 2 coins to retrieve up to 2 workers from other actions. They may be used again this turn. So if you think about when yellow cards get played, that's this zone here, I could in a future turn do quite a lot of actions in spring, knowing that I can get those workers back for the future turns. So very nice indeed. So we've now passed, we're now into autumn. What shall we do? Now all I want to do really this turn is to build another worker, so I am going to pass. So I've only got 1 worker left. And I think so is, no, we're going to, I wouldn't say different. We're going to go here. We had that field, that Merlot, that the yellow players got. We're going to build the irrigation system for them. So that normally costs 3. They're going to go here for a discount, so they're going to spend 2 coins, and they'll put the irrigation on their player board, which means in a future turn they can plant that field. And they've now got no more workers left, so they're going to pass, and it comes back to me. So I will now place this on here, and that allows me to train a worker. Now I've got 5 coins. I think for the time being, just take the 1 bonus, and then spend 4 coins to build another worker, a normal one, not a special one. And he goes on the board. I don't get access to him or her until the end of the year. We'll now come back to yellow. Now yellow has no more workers left, so they have to pass. And so passing, we work through this little 5-step approach here. First of all, they retrieve their workers. So if they were in here blocking some spaces for other players, that will now free those up if I still had workers to go. So they come back on my player board. So I've got 3 workers. Aging grapes. Now, if I had grapes on my player board, for example here, they'll become 1 stronger, and same for wine. If I had a 3 or 2, I'd increase every single of these little beads by 1, just to say years gone by, my grapes have aged in terms of maturity. I then check whether I've got more than 7 cards, so I can never have more than 7 at the end of the round. I can have more during the round, but once I get to the end of winter, discard down to 7. I've got 3. Then I check the payments at the top left. If I have completed wine orders, I would have potentially the opportunity to take some money from future sales, but I haven't, so that's nothing. And then I choose the wake up position. Now we're doing yellow, so yellow is going to get up quite late, feeling quite lazy. Not too bothered about getting up early, getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning, and that means that in summer they get the chance to take a yellow or a blue card, so a visitor card. In the fall they get another visitor card, and they get to put another star on this Tuscany board. If they did go at 7 o'clock, they would unlock additional worker for the year, so they take that straight away, and they have that basically for a whole turn. They can choose any card in the fall, and then they become the guaranteed early riser the next turn, which means you get no bonuses, but you had quite a good choice of things on that previous round. It's now back to blue. Obviously I have no workers left, so I will pass, so I bring back my workers. I've now got 4, not 3, so already going to have an extra turn compared to yellow. Haven't got any grapes to age, I've only got 3 cards. No residual payments, and I choose my wake up position. I think we're going to go and get a purple card in summer, so I can start thinking about what wine I'm going to produce. And then we start again. So I'll play through another couple of rounds. So I've got some fields. I think what I'm going to do is... What am I going to do? I need some more cash. So I'll go here and take 3 coins. Yellow really does need some better green cards, so they're going to go here and take 2 of these. Not the greatest, but they have got this card. What does that focus is? Let me turn off that. So we've got a Chardonnay, requires a trellis and an irrigation, but is a very, very strong wine, or powerful wine in terms of 4. And then we've got this one that requires just a trellis. Again, is not quite as strong. It's a 2 on the grape pad, but they've got a trellis, so they can actually plant both of these. And it's white based on what they had in terms of orders, so that's good for them. I am going to pass, so I slide this over and I take a purple. And we've just picked up a 5 red is required, and a 3 white wine. It will give me 4 victory points if I complete that, and a 1 on the residual. So I keep that in front of me. And yellow is going to pass. So they have a choice of a yellow or a blue visitor card. I think they're going to take a blue. They've got quite a few yellows. And this is the advanced harvester. It says harvest up to 2 fields and choose 1, gain 2 coins or gain a victory point. So again, they might have found that on the main board these spaces were taken where you can harvest by the players, and they have an opportunity to harvest again here, or they want to harvest twice and get loads of grapes onto their crush pad. They can play that blue card and do that again. So that's good. And they've now got 7 cards. Currently I've got 4. So we've now passed, we're into summer. It's blue again, and what we're going to do, what are we going to do? I think I'm going to pass, because I want to do most of my actions harvesting in making wine, and probably building another worker. So I'm going to pass. It gives me a yellow card. And we've got the grand sponsor, being quite useful. It says gain 7 coins or 2 victory points, and at the end of the game, if you don't have at least 4 on the residual track over here, you'll lose 4 victory points. So that really means you must make some wine orders. I mean, there are ways to win the game without making any wine orders. You could obviously get some good yellow and blue cards and score points in various ways. It reminds me, I had my windmill on my player board, and I planted some vines, so I should have scored a victory point. And you do that once a year, so obviously you did that earlier, so just come back and score that. So that's okay-ish. What are they going to do? I think think we're gonna. I think yellow's going to play these two yellows, which might be a bit crazy. So they're going to play the banker, and the banker allows them to take 5 coins. So nice cash injection. So put that there, and it says each other opponent may lose a victory point to gain 3. And I've just got a cheap. I think I will probably. Yeah, I'll drop that one, and I'll take 3 coins because I need some cash. So that goes in discard pile. And the second card, it's always one at a time, is the Fusel Maker. How that pronounced? There. And that says each player may gain 2 grapes on their crush pad. If at least one opponent does, then the person gate. Each player may. Yes, each player does. So they're going to produce a 2. What's my wine order? Yellow need a 2 white. Each player, if at least one opponent does, and blue is going to not bother. So they've got stuff. So there's no bonus, but they did get a free wine. So that is yellow's turn. They've got 1. They really are going to have to get another worker out. So they're going to pass. And they're going to get a visitor card for the winter. And we have the Grape Ice Inventor. A lot of the artwork, I can't remember which, I think it was in the first Kickstarter, you could pay a pledge. And on some of the cards, like this one, they're sponsored by various people. And so is the artwork. This one hasn't, but just sort of mention that. So pay a coin to gain a 4 grape on your crush pad, or play this as a yellow to discard a wine to keep 4 coins. So you can, a way of getting money or cards, which is quite nice. So there, we'll keep that in front of them. And now we're into full. I think that was there. And there. No, it was there and there. So it's blue still. And this is where we want to produce some grapes. So we're going to go here, harvest 1 field. I get a coin for the bonus in the middle. And then that means that I can harvest one of my fields. I've only got 1 field with any vines in it. And that allows me to make 2 tokens on the board. 1 for the red grapes I've just harvested, and 1 for the white grapes I've harvested. So we've now finally got some grapes into our crush pads. That's that go over. Yellow's going to pass straight away because he wants to train a worker with that 5 coins that he got a minute ago. And I am now going to I'm going to make some wine. So I'm going to go here, make up the 2 wine tokens. Oh, I should come to board. So I'm going here, make up the 2 wine tokens. Back to the player board, and all I do is move that 1 to there and 1 to there. So I've known all my grapes in the first year very quickly converted into wine in my small cellar. And in theory, they will now start aging every round. I will now pass, and now we're back to winter. And so I will go and grab that 1 there. So I now spend 3 coins, my discount of 1, to build another worker. And this time actually I'm going to spend the coin to build the professor. So if you remember these cards here, the professor costs an extra coin, so I've just spent 4. So when I place him, I may retrieve a worker from that same season. The worker available again for the rest of the year. So he goes down. If there's another worker in that same season, I take him off and I can use him again. Obviously, though, it does free up opportunity for another player to go. So he is there. And then yellow's turn. So yellow still wants to build a worker. They've got the Grande guaranteed. So even if that space had been filled by other players, the Grande means they can go there anyway. And they've got to pay the full price. So they've got their 4 coins. They get change of 1, and they put a worker on the board. I think that's it. all out. So it's back to blue. I have to pass. I retrieve my workers. So I've now got 5 that I can use, and these just live in here. I'll go through some of the other working spaces. So it is nicely lined up. I aged my grapes. So I have got grapes. No, so I've got wine. So these become straight away number 2. I then discard 7 cards, and I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so no problem there. Haven't made any wine orders yet, so click residual, and then I choose my wake up position. I think I'm going to get up slightly later. I could do some blue cards, so I'm going to get up here, score a victory point, and also have the chance to age grapes twice in a year, so that'd be quite helpful. That's my go over. Now yellow, so they've also run out of workers, so they bring theirs back. They age grapes, which they haven't got. They got about 2 they built, so they can turn that to 3. They've got 1, 2, 3, 6 cards, so that's not a problem. And no residual, and they choose their wake up position. And as they're going to go first, they've got plenty of green cards. I think they're going to wake up just before me and put a star on the board. Just go back to the player board and talk about some of the other buildings that are available. So we've talked about the trellis, and we've talked about irrigation. So those 2 buildings costing 2 and 3 required only for the vines that you want to plant. They have another use apart from that. You have the windmill, which we got as our starting bonus. Normally costs 5 coins. And whenever you plant a vine in a field, it will give you a victory point, max once a year. So I could, even if I play 2 cards or 3 cards into different areas, I'll never get 1 a turn. There's the cottage. Looks like this, nice little door on it. This is 4 coins and allows you to draw 1 extra visitor each fall. So when you get to fall on the main board, so here, you can basically, even if you went in the 2 slot, draw 1 card, but in these spaces you could draw 2 yellows, 2 blues, or a yellow and a blue. Very good, very often worth having. Those blue and yellow visitor cards are very powerful from time to time, but they definitely give you an advantage, and having more to choose from is good. We've got the yoke, this little item here. As I said earlier, it's only costs 2 coins to build. It's another worker placement space, so I could go here on my own board with my worker. It allows me to uproot a vine, so take some grapes away off a field if maybe I've made a mistake or I want to change something, or I want to sell it. You can only sell fields on that property space if they're empty, or I can harvest 1 field. So again, if the main player board is filled up, you can't get anywhere near it. In both summer, because it's got a blue and a yellow, it's got a yellow dotted line, and it's also got a blue dotted line. So this space can only be used in the summer and winter season, but again, quite useful. And then you've got the tasting room, which is this icon here. And that means whenever you give a tour, which is this space here or here, you'll get a victory point. But you need to make sure you've got wine within your player board. Obviously, if there's no wine in your cellar, you can't give a very good tour. So make sure you've got at least something in your cellar. And then bottom of the board, as I talked about, we've got the small and big cellar, which we'll definitely need to do probably either this round or the round afterwards, because these are starting to get mature, and once they get to 3, they will never get any better until they get a slightly larger cellar. I think that's probably it. The game will play through, I say, until somebody scores 25 points. It's one of those games that goes quite slowly for the first 3, 4, 5 turns, but as people start to get money, start to get more workers, it really is a race for 25 points. And somebody, stacked up quite a lot of wine orders, or has got plenty of grapes being produced. Everyone can be on 15, 15, 16 points, and bam, someone's been and scored a 5-pointer and another 5-pointer, and they've won the game. And the game ends when somebody scores 25 points. You do finish out the season or the year, so everyone does finish that season. But if you're 10-point gap, you've got nothing planned. That's the end. Obviously, once the game is over, you come and check the Tuscany board here. In this example, yellow would have got 1, 2, 3 more points for the majority. There's nobody else there. If there's a tie, it comes down to lira, so cash. End of the game. I think maybe another draw element, but I can't remember it. So this is the Tuscany Essential Edition. There's a few other expansions to this. If I flip the board over, there's another set of cards on the right hand side which are structures, and they go along with this additional player board which sits on here, so right there, and it's got 2 places. Again, I can go here, but it allows me to build a structure. There's a couple more spaces on the other board for building structures, but these are specific structures that are unique to me. They're pretty good, but for teaching viticulture or Tuscany first time, I generally leave that out. And there's also some print and play. I think some people can get hold of this, but this is both formaggio and something about apples, which I've now forgotten. My brain has come completely blank. And these go on the right hand side. You don't add both, you do one or the other. Adds more complexity, but we really enjoy the cheese making formaggio one. I think that's it. Any questions, just drop me a message. I'm on Instagram. Board Game Meeple is my primary home. I'll put this up onto Twitch for review later. Any feedback appreciated. It's the first one we've done. Generally, I think we've got pretty good coverage. I think the screen's worked okay. But feedback appreciated. Thank you for listening. Cheers. Bye bye.